Hi everyone, this is Grandmaster Mac Molnar, back with another video. In today's game, we're going to look at a game between David Bronstein and Efim Geller. Both of these players are actually some of the best players recognized never to become world champion. And in Bronstein's case, it was quite a shame because he was one or two games away from becoming world champion. He was actually leading a world championship match against Botvinnik going into, I believe it was the 23rd game of their match, and it was out of 24 games, and he lost in kind of a somewhat controversial style. You could look it up, but he was a great player, known to be very creative, combative, and just an all-around fantastic player. Geller, on the other hand, was kind of a nightmare for certain players of his time period, especially, I believe, Fischer. Fischer had a really hard time with Geller, which says a lot about Geller's play. But beyond that, Geller was also, year after year, one of the best grandmasters in the world, and never quite kind of made like the full run to the world championship. But he was a fantastic player as well. In today's game, we're going to see Bronstein with the white pieces taking on Geller, and yeah, it's a short but sweet game, which is finished off with a nice combination. So it starts out with a Nimzo-Indian Defense here, and this isn't an opening we've talked about a lot in the videos, but it's definitely a really high quality opening. And this opening is characterized by Black trying to fight for the center without actually using their pawns at the start. So it's considered a hyper-modern opening. And actually, for some time, like after it was originally invented, I'm sure they were kind of really speculating hard on whether this is actually like a reasonable way to play the opening. It breaks all the rules. Like, you're supposed to put pawns in the center right away. What is this? But actually, after years and years of practice, it's considered maybe like the absolute best opening you could play against d4. It's really, really just high quality. Most grandmasters play it or include it in their repertoire, so it's a fantastic opening for Black. But part of the attraction to it is actually that it's just so flexible, because after we see what happens here in the game, Black uses this pin here to help control the center, so White's not able to play e4 quickly. Obviously the Knight's not guarding the square anymore, so Black has it under control. And Black develops their entire kingside immediately. They're ready to castle, and they're very flexible with how they can strike back at the center at some point. And all of this is part of the benefit of playing this way for Black. So just a very good opening overall. Here, Bronstein plays a variation which still isn't all that popular. It's usually considered a bit better to do things like maybe Queen C2 here or E3, but he plays A3. So he just actually invites Black to double his C pawns, and this is a little bit, strategically risky, but at the same time, once White takes back, this pawn helps reinforce the center, and we're going to see here that White starts to really build up a powerful center, and it's going to be with ideas like F3 and E4 coming up here in the near future. One thing that Black players, or players of the Black pieces here, should keep in mind is that this pawn on c4, in openings where the c-pawns get doubled, is often a really good target. So plans like b6, and then bishop a6, this tends to be a very good way of playing these types of positions. Black doesn't go for it in the game. We're gonna see what he does, but the next few moves are pretty natural. It kind of follows along with what I was saying. And Black plays d5 here. Just on, my personal taste of this move is not that great, but I think it's objectively maybe not such a bad move or anything, but I wouldn't really be that interested in allowing White to undouble the pawns here and exchange this c pawn for one of Black's center pawns, which in effect is going to be what happens here. They end up swapping. So I think this helps White a little bit, although maybe certain theoreticians would disagree. But another plan like b6 here I think is reasonable, like I mentioned before. So d5 was played, they traded, White plays e3, And what white is really going for here is to establish this bishop on d3 here, where it's going to be just a phenomenal piece. It will be influencing the king side. It will be still eyeing the queen side, but it's going to work really smoothly with this dark square central pawn mass that white has. So this would just be a really harmonious setup for white to achieve. So black tries to prevent it, but even after this happens, it still doesn't really give black a satisfactory position, which is why I'm a little critical of some of the earlier moves. So Bronstein plays knight e2, and knight d7 was played, and now knight f4. So this was a pretty good setup that white went for here. It was also a bit tempting to play something like knight g3. Maybe this could also be a decent square for the knight. It obviously tempos the bishop here. The knight will additionally support an advance like e4 at some point. But f4 is a little bit more active for the knight, and if white were to play the right move coming up, we would see an additional benefit of having this knight on f4. So black played c5, and Bronstein actually missed a very strong plan here. You can pause your videos for a moment, see if you're interested in trying to find what white could have played. Okay, so we'll continue, but the best move here was actually g4. It looks a little counterintuitive maybe to open up the king, but at the same time, white is getting ready for a pawn storm here. And one thing that can happen to a bishop that comes out to f5 in openings like the Scandinavian or Caro-Kann, maybe the Slav defense occasionally, is that if the bishop ends up on g6 with this knight on f4 or e5, somewhere where the knight is pressuring the bishop, is that it can often be really uncomfortable to have it attacked with an oncoming h-pawn, because this bishop, it needs to create some kind of open square to go to, but if black plays maybe the best move or most natural move here, which would open up the bishop for an escape square, whoops, definitely not sideways. Yeah, this is going to ruin black's kingside. White will just play a move like bishop d3, and now these light squares are really loosened up. This is a great target. Black can't happily push it out of the way. White can line up and just keep pressuring it. That's one of the ideas. So this would have actually been a really good setup here for white. But I think it's a useful plan for everyone to know, because there are a lot of situations where bishop ends up here, and you can cause it some trouble. So white played bishop d3 in the game. Much more, it's a pretty natural kind of standard approach here. They want to get castled and trade off one of the pieces that was defending this square here. Okay, so rook e8 was played, castle, rook c8, now rook b1. So I found black's response here a little puzzling. Obviously Geller was an amazing player, but I just kind of couldn't quite figure out what he was thinking here. My best guess, so here he played queen a5, but this just seemed really to be a bit overcomplicated. Probably relying on some tactics here, and it basically invites white to take this pawn, and in order to do that, you must have something good planned in response, because you're just going to let your opponent follow through with their plan. We're going to see that Bronstein doesn't need to be doesn't need a bigger invitation than this one. He just goes ahead and snatches the pawn. Before I address that move, I just wanted to talk about what could have been better. I think the move knight b6 here actually would have been a very good choice. With all these pawns in the center and the queen side as well on dark squares in this dark squared bishop, there's not a lot controlling the light squares here. So a move like knight b6 not only stops the pawn from being under attack, but also helps the knight head towards some weakened squares where it could be quite useful attacking some of white's backward pawns or loose pawns, or just having a nice outpost where it's going to be very active. In particular on c4, but maybe even a4 is not so bad. Maybe if they protect this pawn in the future, they could capture afterwards, open up the rook, head down the c file. But in either case, I think this would have been a better option. So black played queen a5, just kind of provoking white to take the bait there on b7. but I think it's the trapper who gets trapped in this game. White happily takes, so Bronstein, probably gave it some careful consideration here, but if your opponent's not going to stop you from doing your plan, then you should just follow through. So black plays knight b6, and it looks like what he's up to here is potentially a plan like c4. After that, this rook is not able to retreat anywhere. So after playing c4, the queen does not guard the square anymore. Maybe black was planning something like queen a6 after interfering with the queen. That would at least come close to trapping the rook here. So Bronstein, he sees his opponent's kind of idea around the corner, but it's going to take black a few moves to accomplish this. So in the meantime, he launches a very quick and powerful offensive on the king side. So he starts with g4. So he just immediately creates some chaos there and causes some big issues for this knight, because g5 comes close to trapping it. And if black were to play something like c4 here, I think maybe queen f5, for example, and it's just a lot of pieces very well concentrated on the king side here, and yeah, it's gonna be difficult for black coming up here. So in the game, black played h6, white was persistent with h4, so now the threat of g5 is renewed once again. Black takes on d4, but yeah, this is the second time in the game where black just ignores what white is planning. And maybe in both of these cases they thought they were coming up with some kind of stronger threat which would prevent their opponent's plan, but that's definitely not the case here. Bronstein once again doesn't need any invitation. He just continues with his plan, and black takes. But this is just maybe a little bit too provocative here, too reliant on some tactics which just don't quite work out. If you're going to allow your opponent to just break through on the king side like this and abandon all defenses there, whatever you're looking to do must absolutely work. You have to calculate it perfectly. Black was maybe relying on some tactics here with rook takes c3, and then potentially a follow-up like queen c5, attacking the bishop, threatening a discovery. Perhaps they thought that this was working, but after white's next move, black resigned, so definitely didn't quite pan out the way they were expecting, I think. Take a moment here to pause your video, test out if you can find it. It's a really nice idea. Alright, so let's take a look. The stunning move which ended the game was queen g6. Just absolutely beautiful. What a move. And I think it's combinations like this which really give players like Bronstein the reputation of being creative geniuses in that regard. And it just absolutely ends the game. Obviously, the threat is to play queen g7 mate. There's not even a single check black can play to delay things, or pieces to bring to the defense. The only critical option is to take. White can capture on g7, and no matter where the king goes, we can pick either one. I'll go to f8 just to pick this one randomly, but knight g6 finishes the game with an awesome checkmate here. So I don't think there's too much else to add on this one. I don't think I actually gave information on when it was played, but it was played in the 1961 Soviet Championship. So, yeah, the strongest players in the world were playing in that tournament, and yeah, to win a game like this against any of the contestants, let alone Geller, would have been quite the feat. So, anyway, hope you guys liked this video, and feel free to come check it out on our website, Grandmaster Mac. Like and share the video, so we can keep you up to date with new videos like this. So take care, everyone. I'll see you next time.